Today we're talking about the evolution of weapons. So to kick it off, we'll start with what were the first weapons?
The first weapons would most likely be your fists, legs, and rocks. Rocks weren't just used as weapons, they were used as hand axes and pickaxes to dig up more rocks and materials. The rocks used were usually cryptocrystalline rocks, which are fine-grained rock, which is very sturdy. If it was struck, it wouldn't even chip, much less break. The shock wave from the point of impact spreads out more or less throughout the figure of the rock, which is usually a cone shape. When using rocks as weapons, you can understand that they either threw the rocks or used bigger rocks to swing with.
Now, using logic, those were probably the first weapons, but the first known weapons are said to be bows and arrows, clubs, and spears. So we're just gonna go through that list and tell you about them. The first thing that's on the list is the bow and arrow. A bow and arrow is a weapon with two parts, the bow and the arrow. The bow shoots arrows powered by the elasticity of the bow and or its string. Cave paintings from Spain show men with bows that date back to 10,000 BC. At the time, the arrows were made of pine wood and consisted of a flint shaft. The bows and arrows we have today have improved significantly. The bows now are made of metal and usually shoot either steel or aluminum arrows with plastic feathers.
Then there's the club. The club can be wooden or stone. When it was first made, it was just a log that was either just ripped off from the tree or hardened by fire. The best trees for clubs were the ones that had galls. Galls, or coccidia, are a kind of swelling growth on the external tissue of plants. Plant galls are abnormal outgrowths of plant tissues, similar to benign tumors or warts in animals. These clubs were deadly weapons, but they could also be used as tools. Clubs are hammers. Back then, they used clubs to put stakes in the ground for their buildings, as well as smashing skulls. These weapons were first made with just wood, but then, over time, they evolved to basically a rock tied onto either a bone or a stick. These bones they used were usually bones from animals. On some occasions, they were other humans. It wasn't just called clubs either. They were also called maces, batons, mere, oslops, sally rods, koches, and much more. Clubs were basically another word for blunt weapon. The wounds that these weapons caused were called blunt force traumas.
And lastly, we have spears. Spears were just long poles that were sharp at the end. The spears first started out as wooden shafts that were sharpened at the end, and they evolved to sharpened rocks and then to forged metal.